Let's get into it now with Daily Telegraph's National Affairs editor, political editor, host of US Report. Good to speak. How many jobs have you got, James Marrow? Joining me now on Credlin. You are a busy man. Hey, Super, we saw reactions right across the board today. We saw all kinds of politics out there, a lot of experts, economic analysis from business types and others. The Treasurer today, a bit of a backflip there, having to defend his changes after not being strong enough, I think, in relation to the family home this morning. He clearly has the family home in his sights, or he would have ruled it out, without a doubt, on Sunrise. He left the door open. The PM had to shut it down hard. Clearly there's been a couple of phone calls, probably brutal phone calls between the two. Then that mea culpa you saw there from the Treasurer. You've got the PM, you've got the Treasurer, you've got that Winnie the Pooh clown, Stephen Jones.
Yeah.
This messaging over the last 10 days has been such a mess, hasn't it, James?
Well, you know, it's been a mess, but in another way, it's been really, really clarifying, Peter. You know, people might say that this was a campaign lie, this is a campaign backflip from, last year's campaign. But really, I think the real problem that people have with this is that it's actually been an exercise in truth-telling. Remember, this whole thing where we've landed on a $3 million or more change to the concessional tax rate on which you pull out your super, this is not where we started. We started this with Jim Chalmers talking about this whole big thing where your super would be used for nation-building projects, i.e. labor projects, affordable housing, infrastructure, climate stuff, God knows what else. And people said, whoa, 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 it's our money. That kicked off the initial debate. And then they found this sort of very focused group sort of solution of saying, oh, no, it's just a few rich people. Of course, it's not indexed. And, a lot of people will wind up in this, especially because of inflation. This has been an absolute debacle, and I think it has really hit home for Australians because it gets to the heart of the real question here. Not even about super, but whose money is it? Every time they talk about, look, you've got other generous concessions, they're saying, Peter, that every dollar you earn that you're not giving to the government, well, they're being really, really generous in letting you keep.
Well, if anything else underscores the ignorance of politicians on this very point you make, James, it's this comment today from the new ACT Senator David Pocock. I heard it and I couldn't believe he actually said it. Have a listen.
Why do you need more than 3 million? And how do you even get 3 million into there to start with?
Well, you idiot, you get 3 million in your super because you saved the money, you've put it aside, you've worked hard. That's how you get 3 million. You don't get on a sporting field and get a big cheque like probably he has in his past life. I cannot believe the ignorance of the bloke.
Well, I mean, look, this is doing Peter Dutton's work, and also, incidentally, it's also doing Dom Perrottet's work for him as well. Every time you hear people say that, that is a direct socialist attack on aspiration, and it's illiterate. It is mathematically illiterate because, $3 million in your super, if you're getting 4% on that, that is not kicking off some huge, massive return, especially if you live in a city. The idea that if you're getting interest or an annuity off of that, you're living the high life, flying to Monaco, that kind of thing. No, that's simply not the way it is. And this just attack on aspiration and this idea that they'll still say, oh, well, we'll decide how dignified a retirement you get. I think every Australian should be outraged and really, really nervous.
I want to go to New South Wales, James. There's a poll out today. I mean, there's a poll out every day at the moment. We've got an election on the 25th of March. But this one this morning, Sydney Morning Herald Resolve poll. It says Labor's primary voters increased 1 point to 38%. The coalition, they're saying, has slipped 2 points to 32%. Clearly, it's going to be a tighter contest than first expected. There's a difference in those polls over recent weeks, but we're seeing a bit of panic out there today by the opposition leader in Western Sydney. I don't suspect on the night we're going to get a uniform result. Give us your sense of things.
Yeah, look, my sense of things, I think is probably pretty similar to yours, Peter. Here in New South Wales, there's just this sense that Chris Minns hasn't sealed the deal, and he has been such a small target running through this campaign that voters just simply don't know who he is. And even if they do know who he is, they've got no idea who the rest of his team is. And there's no sense that baseball bats are really out, for the Perrottet government on any major issue. There's no sort of sense of it's time that's seeing him floundering in the polls. I reckon this is going to be very close. I suspect whoever winds up getting over the line is going to get there in a minority government, and I think that's more likely than not going to be Dom Perrottet. That's just my own prediction, Peta.
Yeah, it feels like it's vanilla versus beige at the moment, and I say that with a heavy heart because I'm a Conservative, so is Perrottet, but you wouldn't know it from his policies.
Well, that's right. And part of the problem Dom Perrottet has had is that, he has gone off and pandered so much to the left. And that's because of deals he's had to make, with people like Matt Keane, also with, independents like Alex Greenwich out there. And so he's wound up, towing a very lefty line on a lot of things that's really alienated a lot of the base. Now, the question is whether or not they look at what's happened in Canberra the last week or two and say, hang on, even the most reasonable Labor guy is still going to come after your assets, after your business, after whatever. We've still got to stick with this guy. That remains to be seen.
My husband's worked a long time in politics. He calls it DCB politics, dull, colourless and boring. And I think that speaks to both leaders there.
I think that nails it, yeah.
Let's go to Victoria. A war of words has erupted today about this proposed second injecting room for Melbourne. A former Police Commissioner, Kel Lay, he's had 2 years to land a report. We know the Premier wants this second injecting room. We know he does because they've already bought the building in Flinders Street or near to Flinders Street in the CBD. When pushed on it yesterday, this is what the Premier said.
I'm not certain. I'm not certain when we're due to receive that.
So he's been waiting for this report for 2 years, doesn't have it. But then this morning, his Treasurer, Tim Pallas, had this to say.
We are reassessing the recommendations that Mr Lay gave to us, which talked about the location for a second safe injecting facility. And the reason for that is, of course, a lot has changed since the pandemic.
So clearly the reports landed, James. The government doesn't like what Lay's report said, and then they've flicked it back to him and basically told him to rewrite his report. I mean, you and I can read that, can't we?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in this sort of government sort of thing, you never commission a report without making it fairly known what the answer you're going to want is going to wind up being. Now, I don't know where this second injecting room will ultimately land. Frankly, knowing what I do know, I don't live in Melbourne, but I've seen a lot of the reports, and we've spoken about the first one here on this program many times over the years, Peta. I would be pretty nervous about a second one opening up there for sure.
James Marrow, I'll leave it there. London to a brick, we've got one coming for Melbourne. In the CBD, we just haven't been told about it. Thank you, James.